I'm not a lawyer, but let's get into day 2 of the Karen Reed trial, because it was tea. So the first responding officer, Steve Saraf, was still on the stand, and Karen's team is up to do cross-examination. Her attorney starts with the police dispatch log from the day of John's death. The logs are supposed to show which officers were dispatched to the scene, what time they arrived to the scene, and of course, the location of the scene. But child.
Right, there appear to be 3 entries for the dispatch of the officers that were on the scene about which you testified yesterday, correct?
Yes, sir.
It actually has Officer Mullaney arriving first at 6:09:26. You see that? So has 3 seconds later at 6:09:29 you arriving. 4 seconds after you at 6:09:33, correct?
Sure. Yep, correct.
That is completely false, isn't it?
Yes.
And clearly, we saw it yesterday. You arrive and there's nobody else on scene.
Correct. Yep.
All right. So right off the bat, the official Canton Police Department dispatch log, one of the first documents generated in any investigative event, that's completely wrong, right?
The times are, yes.
Well, the times and the orders, right? At the left-hand column where it's highlighted in green, what's that address?
It says 32 Fairview.
Did you arrive to 32 Fairview Road?
No.
You arrived to 34 Fairview Road,
That's correct. Yep.
So that even the location on the dispatch log is faulty, is that right?
Sure, yep.
You testified at a grand jury in April of 2022, correct?
I did.
At that grand jury, do you remember telling the grand jurors what address you actually responded to? You arrived.
It says 35 Fairview.
Are you aware that have you ever discussed with Sergeant Good that he wrote in his official report that you responded to 32 Fairview Road?
No.
And of course, we just talked about the fact that the dispatch log lists 32 Fairview Road and not 34 Fairview Road, correct?
Correct.
So none of the initial police reports, not the dispatch log, not your police report, apparently not Sergeant Good's, list 34 Fairview Road as the actual location. Was there an effort on your part or anybody else's, to your knowledge, to mask the actual address of Brian Albert's house as 34 Fairview Road?
No.
And then her attorney gets into what the officer saw when he arrived. Karen Reed was there on scene. Jennifer McCabe was there on scene. And reminder in case you needed, Jennifer McCabe is the sister and sister-in-law to the owners of the house that they were in front of. So it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and John's body has just been discovered in the front yard of this house, which again is Jennifer McCabe's family's house. And then a third woman, Carrie Roberts, is also on the scene because Karen had called her that morning to help look for John.
Isn't it true that Jennifer McCabe pulled you aside while my client and Carrie Roberts stayed with John O'Keefe and began engaging you in a conversation?
Yes.
And she was providing some sort of a narrative to you, correct?
Correct.
While the other 2 women are trying to save John O'Keefe's life, she's talking to you.
For brief seconds, I would say.
For brief seconds?
Yes.
You saw the Dashcam video. Was those several minutes on the Dashcam video where she's standing and having a conversation with you? Are those the brief seconds?
I don't know what time frame you're talking about. Sir.
Did Jennifer McCabe offer to you during that brief seconds that you described, this narrative that she was having, this conversation she was having with you, did she ever offer the fact that she was standing in front of her sister's house?
No.
Did she ever offer the fact that her brother-in-law, who lives in the house, is a first responder?
Objection.
Sustained.
Were you apprised at any time while you were out there that the homeowner was a first responder?
Objection.
Sustained.
Between Karen Reed and Jennifer McCabe, which one of those 2 women, based on your observations, appeared to you to be more focused on physically trying to save John O'Keefe's life in the moment?
At that point, it was Karen Reed.
Do you recognize your Dashcam video being on the left of the screen? Okay. Have you looked at Sergeant Good's Dashcam video, which is squared up on the right side of the screen? I'm going to ask you to focus on the person in the darker jacket. What I expect you may see is this person move out of sight behind the SUV, and then in the background, there's an SUV parked in the driveway. Pay special attention to that portion of the SUV and see if you see that person in the dark jacket pass from right to left in front of that SUV as if they're going to the house. And now I'm going to ask to draw your attention to that car with snow on it. Pause. Do you see a person standing in front of the car?
It appears to be a person, yes.
Walking from right to left?
Yes.
Would that be toward the house?
Yes, it would be.
Okay. And also, if you wouldn't mind switching your perspective, now you're looking more at the front of the house. Continue watching the film and see if you see that same person walking toward the house. Okay, stop. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see. Oh, yeah, yes, I saw the shadow, yes.
Right. Shadow of a person
Yes.
walking toward the front of the house. That was Jennifer McCabe going into the house, wasn't it?
I have no idea.
Was it a person going into the house?
It was a person, yes.
Did you give anybody any permission to go into the house?
No, not my own.
Do you think it's appropriate for a witness at a potential homicide scene, an unconscious person scene, whatever crime scene,
Yes.
to make contact with other witnesses and begin discussing the situation unsupervised?
Can you rephrase that question, sir?
Do you think that's an appropriate thing to have happen?
I have no answer for that, sir. I don't know what you're asking.
Officer Saraf, when you go to a crime scene,
Yes, sir.
one of the first things that you want to do is secure the scene and separate witnesses so that interviews could be conducted, correct?
Sure.
You wouldn't want witnesses just cavorting together and getting their story straight, right?
Correct.
You'd want to avoid that at all costs,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
All right, let me just play these next clips and y'all can see what happened.
You would agree with me, Officer Saraf, that in any investigation, details matter, accuracy matters, correct?
Sure.
Reports are written in police investigations in order to memorialize observations, things heard, seen, experienced by the officers, correct?
Yes.
And generally speaking, you're trained to write those reports and memorialize those observations as quickly as possible so that things are fresh in your memory.
Correct.
You don't want to write a report about an incident that you respond to today, 2 years from now.
No.
As a matter of fact, you're trained exactly the opposite. When you respond to a scene, it's somewhat important. You need to get it down on paper as quickly as possible for detail and accuracy, right?
Yes.
Shout out to YSL.
So the only statement you attributed to my client the day after this incident was those 3 words, "Is he dead?" that she continually repeated. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. In the 2 times that you were asked to reflect back on exactly what happened that morning, on January 29th and January 30th, both times you attributed only 3 words to my client having been repeated continually in her distraught state. "Is he dead?" Right?
Yes.
Then you were asked to testify in April of 2022, April 14th of 2022, at a state-run grand jury. Months after this event, for the first time, you said, quote, and these are your words, tell me if I get them right. She, this is my fault. I don't know. She said, I can't believe this happened. I mean, she kept asking if he was going to die, if he's dead. And, I just basically said, we're doing the best that we could. So in April of 2022, for the first time, you attributed the phrase, "This is my fault. I can't believe this happened," to my client, correct?
That's correct.
So after Officer Steve, another officer that arrived to the scene that morning comes up to testify. And I just want to highlight a quick moment toward the end of his testimony when prosecutors are asking him if anyone else that lives on the street came outside that morning when the police and the firefighters and the paramedics are all outside.
And as far as any of the other residences on the entire rest of the street, did you see any of the neighbors or anybody else come outside at any point in time?
I did not.
I have nothing further.
Just one question, if I might.
Okay.
Recross.
Sure.
And I don't mean to be a wise guy, sir, but did any of the other neighbors on the entire street have the body of a dead police officer on their front lawn?
Objection, Your Honor.
All right, so that's sustained. All right. You are all set, sir.
The next witness is firefighter paramedic Timothy Nuttall, and he told the story of arriving on scene and attempting to provide medical care to John O'Keefe when this happened.
So as I was ventilating at the head, there was a small delay in just getting equipment, nothing significant, just enough time that as I was ventilating, I was able to ask, did anybody see anything? What happened? And there was one individual that replied several times, I hit him.
And did you know that individual at that time?
I did not.
Can you describe the individual that said that?
I would describe her as mid-40s, average build, average height. And the other two, very similar.
And then on cross with Karen's defense team, things got a little bit interesting for firefighter Timothy Nuttall. So I'm just going to run through these clips because you need all of them for the full effect.
I honestly couldn't tell you the number of articles of clothing, but I believe a winter jacket and a sweatshirt were removed, and then eventually he was all the clothing was removed, and that's protocol for any cardiac arrest or any traumatic injury is usually all clothing is removed so we can have unfettered access to the individual to see if there are any other injuries.
But you remember him having the big jacket on?
Correct.
Okay. And you remember that as well as you remember the other specifics of the incident?
Yes.
Okay. You do recognize them?
Yes.
Does that appear to be what John O'Keefe was wearing when you found him?
I don't recall, sir, to be perfectly honest. I could say that he had clothing removed, but I couldn't tell you exactly what it was.
Does that appear to be a thin cotton hoodie?
Yeah, that appears to be a thinner layer of clothing.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Not a heavy coat. Is that fair?
Fair.
Not a winter jacket.
Fair.
You claim to have heard this statement, I hit him,
Yes.
several times from the woman with the blood on her face.
Correct.
You indicated that she was erratic,
Correct.
hysterical,
Correct.
and it's absolutely clear in your mind that when that statement was made, you were knelt down over Mr. O'Keefe. Flamati was doing CPR, Kelly was with you guys, and you posed the question to her, do you know him? Correct?
Correct.
Great. So I want to make sure I understand this. You said, as you're knelt down, do you know him, directly to the female, and she answered your question with, I hit him.
Yes.
But that's not what you told Trooper Proctor in a February 8th interview. Is
Okay.
it?
I don't recall what I told Trooper Proctor.
Do you recall on February 8th telling Trooper Proctor that while you were rendering aid, you heard Karen say, I hit him, to another female on the scene, and the other female told Karen to be quiet?
I do recall that.
That's not what you testified to today, though.
Okay.
That story has changed to you posed a question, and she answered your question. Correct?
Correct.
So which is it?
So, when ventilating a patient, typically, that is also used to gather information from bystanders, because as I'm ventilating, I can real quick look around. Do you know this individual? Do you know anything about this individual? That's fairly typical for any scenario in this. It's a very quick information gathering strategy.
You didn't write a report that said, by the way, while I was out at the scene, I heard a female say, I hit him, and that's the cause and manner of the injuries.
Not to my knowledge.
Well, you would know if you wrote a report that said that,
Correct.
and you did not.
I did not write the patient care report. The memories that I have and the ones that I'm bringing up, I don't believe that they've changed. You know, I've played them over in my head to the best of my ability, and I don't believe my story is swayed. If they've been enunciated incorrectly on my part, that it wasn't intentional.
Understood.
Yeah.
And nobody's casting aspersions.
Yeah.
Memory's a funny thing. So your memory is as good about that as it is about that winter coat.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to keep watching. I'll be back with day 3.